Hi everyone, I'm Stan Zaslavsky from Eagle Vision Property, here with Ben Payne from Business Concepts Group, who is an accountant who's extremely specialised in property development transactions. So Ben is going to talk about GST and how a lot of property developers actually get it completely wrong in a transaction. And so, Ben, what is the case study that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is just demonstrate to you how easy it is to get GST wrong out of a simple property transaction. Right. As we note before, and we've stated a few times in the past, GST is one of those areas where it's really easy for developers to get it wrong by making assumptions based on what their general knowledge is of GST rather than what the actual law is. And it's a really complicated area of law to deal with. So in this example, we have a property developer who purchased a property for $3 million. That property was purchased with no GST on it because it was existing residential property. And then the developer went on to, with his plans and permits, and incurred about $330,000 worth of costs and claimed the GST on those particular expenses. He had the plans to get on that particular site a permit for 30 apartments. Unfortunately for that developer, when he went to council denied his application despite originally having a positive response, and then subsequently after going to VCAT, it had then got the council's decision got upheld. So unfortunately the developer was in a position where that development site was no longer feasible for him to continue doing any type of development on there. So he decided to put it on the market and see how he goes. And as we know in the market today, Stan, properties are selling for good prices. So he was in a fortunate position that property actually sold for $3.8 million. Right. When he signed the contract including GST. He made the assumption at that point in time that there was no GST on the sale of that property. Right. In normal circumstances, just by going ahead and doing his plans and permits, and by that not proceeding, in normal circumstances that would be correct. But what the key point of what this developer did is that during the process of putting the permits in place, he commenced the demolition of the actual building of the property. Mm-hmm. So by demolishing the building, in actual fact what he did was created new residential property because he changed the nature of the original property he purchased. So unfortunately there was GST on that transaction on the sale. So with the contract, based on the way that he worded the contract, it meant that the person that was going to be liable for the GST was actually going to be the developer. Yeah. And that GST on $3.8 million, because he hadn't nominated in writing between the parties to use margin scheme, essentially it was going to be out of pocket for $354,000. Wow. Oh, sorry, it was $345,000, I should say. Equally as bad. So obviously not a good scenario. What the developer should have done is come and sought our advice, and what we could have done is taken him through a number of scenarios that he could have potentially have done in order to either reduce the amount of GST or pay no GST whatsoever. Right. So the three options that would have been available to him was to sell that property as a going concern. He was a developer, the new purchaser was a developer, he was giving the new developer all his plans and permits and engineering, drawings, soil tests, etc. So everything necessary to be able to sell that property. So he could have sold as a going concern, no GST in the transaction, would have saved him $345,000. Right. Good outcome. Option two, he could have elected to sell it on a margin scheme. Right. Now, based on the numbers that were involved in this transaction, that means that would have been a savings then of around about $272,000. Still a much better outcome than what he was actually faced with at the time. The other option was to actually sell the property and put in the contract that the property price would be plus GST in the contract. Yep. And therefore forcing the burden of the GST onto the purchaser. And in that result, again, would have been a savings of $345,000. Pretty simple transaction, but it just demonstrates on that pretty simple transaction how if they had sought the right advice up front, how it could have saved him a lot of money.
Yep, very good. Look, that's all that we have time for today. If you'd like to get in touch with Ben, all the details will be on the next slide. Thank you so much for watching and look forward to seeing you again.